Welcome this afternoon. Thank you for allowing Foothills Christian Church to host your family, Mike and Debbie, in this time of trials for you. We'd like to also welcome all the friends, family, the Wildland firefighter family, all the brothers and sisters here who worked and knew Mike over the years. If you'll join me in an opening prayer. Our Father, we just come to you today, and we thank you so much for the love that you've given us. Father, we thank you for the many blessings in our lives. We also thank you for the comfort you give us, the comfort that passes all understanding. Lord, as we grieve and remember, let us never forget that you are the great comforter, and your hand lies here with us today as you speak to each person here in their own way as they remember Mike. Lord, we just ask a special blessing on the family as they go through this trial. Lift them up, give them comfort and peace. And Father, we just ask that you would make the service go well today with a blessing, that we'll come away uplifted. So Lord, now as we turn the service over to you, we just ask that each person here will remember Mike in their own special way. And Father, we pray all these things in Jesus' precious name. Amen. Todd, would you come and...
Good afternoon. Before I get too far down the hill or up the hill, however you want to look at it, on behalf of Mike and Debbie, I wanted to thank some people. For starters, the Jumpers, Boise, West, and McCall, for your significant show of support to the crew, for the meal that's coming, and the money that ponied it up, and probably a whole bunch more things I don't know about. But a pretty noticeable jolt of muscle and savvy and support for these guys. Thank you. I'm looking for eyes. I got a little sun in mine. I'm not seeing all your faces, but a little head nod every now and then. Be all right. Victoria, it's been a huge help to Eric and Brad and the crew for getting their legs underneath them, what they needed to do, and supporting them, how to move around in here and rig up the main and set up the display, and a huge show of support to get them going. It's been a long, drawn-out deal, and they couldn't have done it without you guys, this church, and Victoria. For Sam, AV guy, the Piper, Mike, Tommy Hayes, who was BLM Honor Guard liaison, subject matter expert on all these things that nobody knows how to do until they happen. To Vicki and Burke Minor, for everything you guys do, besides just now, everything you've done, financial, morale, spiritual, all of it. Thank you. For our people back at home on the Tahoe that aren't here, it's worth noting that Mike Cherry is our division on the Yuba River division, our ranger, Karen Hayden, and our force supervisor, Tom Quinn, were solid, and they stood up in a real time of need when the crew needed to tighten up and take care of each other, and they ran interference, and they did it extremely professionally and without hesitation. And last, it should be noted, although he would say it's his job, that Eric Rice has been a rock for his boys and for Mike's family, and it's been a long deal. And it wouldn't have turned out the way it's turning out or the way it's going to turn out without that guy right there. So the prayer blesses us right now. It's given us our sort of our intent, what we can do here today. I see a lot of firefighters in this room. I'm starting to see them now as my eyes adjust. I'm recognizing faces. There's a lot of muscle in here. There's a lot of spirit in here, whether it's hot shot or smoke jumper. There's a lot of love from family and friends. And, well, I would say that we are charged with charging this ritual. This ritual is for Mike. This ritual is for Mike's family, for this crew, for the jumpers he was on the list with. This is our opportunity to turn Mike's head, whatever he's doing right now, wherever he's at. If we do this right, we can get his attention, I'm sure of it. And it's our chance for some closure. Whatever closure we can get in the wake of a tragedy that no one ever would have seen coming without any warning. And free up Mike, and free up his parents, and his brother, and his family that I haven't met, and free up these black shirts, and free up the smoke jumpers. Find a spot where we can set this with some degree of grace and honor him from this day forward. I'll take just a couple minutes to share me and Mike. I met Mike my name's Todd, I forgot that part. I worked with Mike when he came to the crew in 2008. 2008 was a big fire year in Northern California. It was kind of like the Old Testament came to Northern California about 2 months earlier than it usually does, and we were busy. We were back-to-back tours right from the get-go, smoke, no soccer practices. I'm sure a lot of you were there. And he plugged right in. And it was not staging and mopping up. It was building line and giving our knees up to the Klamath and the Shasta T and the American River drainage of the Tahoe. And Mike plugged right in, as I recall. And to back up, I remember when he started helping build tools. We take pride in the tools we build on the Tahoe. That's one of them. I think it's over there on his web gear, Chingadera. And crew has always made those. And it's kind of one of those things that coming up in the ranks on the crew, you always wanted to be the guy that Rick Cow or Rusty Whitwer or Mike Campbell asked, hey, you're going to help me build Chingaderas and Super Peas. And I don't know, Mike wasn't there very long, and all of a sudden he was getting to do that. I mean, I wasn't GS3 anymore, but, it was an honor. And I think that might make his father proud, knowing that he knew his way around grinders and torches and the whole nine. We didn't break his tools. But I remember it was our third back-to-back tour. It was outside of Coffee Creek somewhere, accessed it through the Shasta Trinity, but we were closer to the Klamath. We were on a fork of a fork of a fork of something that was steep. And crew, 14 or 16 and 2 off and back and off and back, and we're buggy camping. We're at the end of this long road, and we're basically spiked out. And, we're talking about a month and a half of guys looking at each other's dirty chonies, not having a lot of privacy, starting to get on each other's nerves a little bit, start playing tricks, mostly fun tricks, reindeer games, some of them slightly mean-spirited, but no harm. And I remember that Mike was somehow involved with collecting a whole bunch of backhaul rubbish, and somehow shoved it all on my crew haul, 7-ball. I mean, there was not room to chill out in 7-ball that night because it was, to the gunnels. And I remember looking back and looking at my boys and going, you gonna stand for that? I'm looking at Rambir right now, 8-baller. And we had muscle on 7-ball that year, but Mike Kelly was force. And I think they were trying to find some circuitous ways of enacting justice, but he got away with it. He got away with it lock, stock, and barrel. And I remember, oh man, that guy's going to be a thorn in my side. It didn't last though. I became a fan pretty quick. I became a fan initially because of his work ethic and his morale, his creativity, just the things of his personality that you all, as well as I, know were nice to be around and reliable to be around. You know, when he loved firefighting, but he also loved his life. He also loved to travel. He loved to move around. He loved to be free. And I remember a piece of paper came through Region 5, and it was stating that from this day forward, all GS5s will be working year-round, and if you don't, you're not going to get unemployment. And they hoodwinked quite a few guys that never ever wanted to mess their lives up by working year-round, but not Mike. You know, he thought about it because he didn't want to offend his leadership, and but he was like, oh, you know, I remember running downhill on one of our runs. It's prefaced by a warm-up, slow downhill jog before we hit the trail, and we turn it on. And he was like, hey, what do you think about that paper that's out? You know, do I have to sign that? And I said, well, you know, I think if you want to work year-round, you should. But if you're not ready to work year-round, then you shouldn't do it. You know, well, I sure like going to Brazil, you know. I was thinking about going to Brazil again this winter. I said, well, you know, man should go to Brazil, Mike. Go to Brazil. You'll be ready. When you're ready, you can do it. It'll probably be there waiting for you. And he did. He had a nice way of honoring himself and honoring what his rules of engagement were, for lack of a try to get out of the fire metaphor thing, but he had a good way of meeting his needs as well as the expectations of his crew and his foreman and his soup and squaddies. And it was when I left the crew that my friendship with Mike evolved and took a nice turn, because it wasn't hemmed in with, you know, supervisor, crewman. All that was gone, and allowed us to like be bros, you know, be homies, more egalitarian, you know, and talk about the places we hadn't gone to yet that we wanted to go. And you know, I had great hopes that included him this winter. He was going to help me learn Portuguese. He was going to be my snowboard coach so I could keep up with my oldest daughter in the park, and he didn't know of any of these things. And he knew that I wanted to learn Portuguese. I told him that I wanted to, you know, get in the super pipe last winter, but you know, I'm trying not to hold on to all the regret that I feel, that I know a lot of people in here feel as well, about the what we didn't get to do and the what ifs, and I'm personally ready to try and park that regret and just honor Mike every day, you know. Let's wrap this up. I was studying the Tibetan Book of the Dead. Pulled it off my shelf and I was breezing through it. I'd read it a long time ago when I was a freshman in college, in a world religion class, and I found some things in there that really resonated with me, trying to understand how something like this, I mean, we're no strangers to death in the fire service, but you know, you can go a whole summer and lose guys that you knew on the line, guys you respected, crews you worked with maybe a little bit, but then it happens to you and it's totally different. It's a different ball game. And everything you think you know about living and dying, it's just, it's square one. And I found that in Tibet, that the word for body it's lu, I believe, lu. And it means something you leave behind. It reminds us that we're travelers, and that we're only taking temporary refuge in this body, in this vehicle. That there's more. There's a lot more. And Mike was a traveler, and Mike still is a traveler. And he moved around the world, tall and far, and he made friends probably everywhere he went. And I think about the places that he went, the places we didn't get to talk about. I think about the Galapagos, and it makes me incredibly sad to imagine the people out there in the world that knew Mike, that were moved by Mike, enjoyed surfing with him or diving or whatever, that don't know that Mike's moved on, you know? I think we could have filled many rooms like this. So I found something from a poet that I like a lot. He's a South American poet, Pablo Neruda. And when I found it, I felt like it was a home run for me. It was how I was going to move on. It was how I was going to package my grief and my loss. And it's kind of like a diamond bullet. I'll read it to you. It says, "If I die, survive me with such sheer force that you waken the furies of the pallid and the cold. From south to south, lift your indelible eyes. From sun to sun, dream through your singing mouth. I don't want your laughter or your steps to waver. I don't want my heritage of joy to die. Don't call it my person, I'm absent. Live in my absence as if in a house. Absence is a house so vast that inside you will pass through its walls and hang pictures in the air. Absence is a house so transparent that I, lifeless, will see you living, and if you suffer, I will die again." So I find myself asking myself, would Mike do it? Would Mike go see that band? You know, here in a couple weeks when there's enough snow in the mountains, would Mike charge that line? And I'm gonna vow to myself and my friends and my family to be better and bolder and freer and truer to what's eternal in all of us and eternal in our friendships. And that's how I'm going to honor you, Mike. And I'm going to say to you that scout it out for me, man. Get it sussed. I'm behind you, but don't wait up. Give me a hoot when I'm getting close, and I'll meet you on the ridge top. Kevin? Mr. Wood? Nice to meet you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I was just thinking, I was sitting in here, I think I could quote Mike if he was here to look around. He would just look around and go, "Dude, dude." I think Mike made that word "dude" fashionable before it was ever fashionable. He was using that back when he was a middle schooler. Anyhow, this picture is just Mike. That's just him. I can just picture him like that. So, welcome everyone to the celebration of life for Michael Patrick Kelly. My name is Kevin Wood, and I had the honor and privilege of being Mike's wrestling coach for many years. If you couldn't tell, I'm a wrestling coach. I got the battle scars. But more importantly, our family had the honor of Mike being close to our family for many years. First of all, the first thing I would like to do is I would like to introduce and acknowledge all those individuals in attendance who either presently or in the past have been firefighters, whether it be the fire department or wildland firefighters, smoke jumpers, everything included. Would you please stand up for us to acknowledge you? Please stand up now. We are in debt for the sacrifice and caring that goes with your occupation that makes our lives as individuals and families much safer. We thank you very much. Next, if you have ever, in the past or present, been a wrestler, been a mother of a wrestler, been a girlfriend of a wrestler, you know who you are. Have had to walk that line where you could walk into a room and know that guy's a wrestler. Please stand up right now, please too. With all due respect to the firefighters, we claim Mike Kelly first. As one of our own, in many ways I feel the sport of wrestling helped prepare Mike for the rigors, stress, mental toughness, camaraderie, and the intensity of life as a firefighter. I keep trying to retire from this sport, but they keep calling me back, and I'm still doing it. And last week we had a wrestling match. I coach at Mountain View High School now, and I had a freshman wrestler go out there, and he basically got his butt kicked. He was a first-year wrestler. And he came back off the mat, and he wrestled a senior, and he got pinned pretty quick. And he just looked at me and said, I'm so sorry, Coach. And I said, don't ever say that to me again. He said, what? I said, you have enough balls to step out there on the wrestling mat as a wrestler. There's people hiding out up in that weight room right now that don't have it. They don't have the courage to do what you're doing right now, to put it on the line, one-on-one, to go out in front of people and risk. Don't ever apologize for being a wrestler to me, ever. You can say you didn't do the best you could, that's fine, but don't apologize for being a wrestler. The similarities of a wrestler and firefighter are many. Hard workers, mental toughness beyond imagination. They're willing to push through the unknown, willing to work alone, and individual accountability. They have a touch of smartassness and cockiness also, and the willingness to act even when they might be scared to death. We can both walk into a room and spot one of our kind. We can see the look, how they carry themselves, interact with others. It's almost like a secret handshake club that only we know. It doesn't mean that we are any better. We are just different. We take enormous pride in that difference. I tip my hat to all who have walked the path of both of these lifestyles, very much so. I met Mike Kelly when I was trying to remember this, approximately he was about 5, 6 years old. That's when I first remember Mike Kelly. Skinny, very kind, big floppy ears, and a go-for-it attitude that is making for a good wrestler. I watched Mike over the years come up through the schools and then looked forward to him wrestling for me at the high school level. As a wrestler at the high school, Mike's work ethic was unsurpassed. He was a varsity wrestler even as a freshman. He was a leader by his attitude and his incredible drive to succeed. He wasn't the most physically blessed wrestler, but he made up for it with his passion and his drive for the sport. A coach would be blessed to have 50 Mike Kellys on their team. Mike hated to lose with a passion. Many times if he lost a match, he would walk right back into the wrestling room and start working out immediately after the match, even if it was a late-at-night match. One of my personal philosophies with wrestling is I think we stand different than a lot of sports. And some of the guys who have wrestled for me before, they know what I'm talking about when I say the Kevin Wood 5-minute rule. The 5-minute rule is this. I always tell people, if you're hurt in the wrestling room and you drop down, you're hurt, maybe hurt your knee, maybe you got blasted in the head, 5 minutes from now, where are you going to be? Are you going to be in that training room and they're going to be calling your parents and they're going to be taking you for x-rays? Or 5 minutes from now, will you be wrestling? Will you be back on the mat wrestling? So I always tell the kids, if 5 minutes from now, make that decision, you know you're going to be back wrestling, you might as well do it right now. Because for 5 minutes, you're probably just going to be sucking attention from people, trying to get people to feel sorry for you. One day I'm watching Mike wrestle, and he gets hurt. He gets blasted in the head, and I see him go, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I watched it again, and he's going, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I go, Mike, what are you doing? He says, well, you're an old man. It takes you 5 minutes. It takes me 5 seconds to figure it out. So he figures it out in 5 seconds that he's ready to go back. So he taught me a lesson that day. So whenever I get a hard shot to the head like I did the other day, I just remember Mike Kelly. I go, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's go for it now. Some stories that Mike, that we got to experience with him. One time I decided to have all my wrestlers go for a day hike. So we have a meeting place, and I can't remember where it was, but probably a dozen of them show up, and it's raining. We're going to go hike up in the Sawtooth to a place called Sawtooth Lake, about a 5-mile hike up there. And it's raining here in Boise, and this is in the fall. So we show up at the appointment, and my one look at these guys, I had to quote one of my famous philosophers, Scooby-Doo, and I looked and said, rut-row. I looked at these guys, and they're in shorts, T-shirts, flip-flops, or tennis shoes. And it's raining in Boise at that time. I said, let's go for it. And Mike, he's ready to go for anything. I was talking to Bobby out here in the hallway, and he worked with Mike and where were you at, Bobby? West Yellowstone. And he said Mike was just game for anything all the time. So my wife and I packaged them up into sleeping bags, and we headed up to the hill. By the time we got to the trailhead, it's snowing bad. And we start walking up the trail, and they're freezing. We got halfway up the trail. My wife and I are shedding our clothes and giving them to all these kids. We got about half the way up that hill before we all had to turn back and come back around. So that should tell you a little bit about that group. And about 15 years ago, myself and about 4 of my other wrestlers, Mike Calhoun, Shane Armstrong, Nick Farinado, and Mike Kelly, we went hiking. Well, at that time, I decided to meet my guys up there. I was going to meet them up there. We were going up to Barren Lakes. And I said, I got to get a head start on you guys. At the time, I had 2 really pretty bad hips. Since then, I've had hip replacements. So I got up there about 5 hours before them. But I could hear those guys probably at the trailhead, how loud they were. I could hear them down the canyon screaming and yelling. I could hear Mike Kelly singing down the canyon. So we finally got up to Barren Lakes. And I'm pretty tired. I'm an old man by then. And still am. But I'm pretty tired, and Mike's disappeared. We didn't know where he was at. Well, Mike is walking around the lake collecting driftwood. And I'm going, what is he doing? Well, now he's collecting string. He's making a raft. So Mike is stringing driftwood together, and I'm going, this is never going to work. Next thing you know, there's Mike Kelly out in the middle of the lake on his driftwood raft. And we're all laughing at him, and then his raft starts disintegrating. So he's trying to walk on water, basically, trying to get back to shore. But it was just the funniest thing in the whole world to see that. And the most important thing here is our family loved having Mike Kelly over to the house. Every time Mike came to visit us, it was always an unannounced surprise knock at the door. Mike would come in, would always have a knack for showing up on pizza night at our house, and would tell us about his latest trip around the world and the people he had met and the experiences that he had had. We felt like we had our own little Dora the Explorer come to visit us. It was always a treat when Mike would show up at our house. Mike was a traveler. In the lifetime, he traveled the places that others dream about. Places like Switzerland, Panama, Australia, Thailand, Colombia, the Galapagos Islands in Ecuador, the Amazon River, and his favorite place, which he visited 7 times, Brazil. Mike Sr. told me about Mike's desire to want to buy a house in Brazil because of his love for the country and its atmosphere. At an early age, Mike had figured it out, that home is not a place, but more so a feeling. Mike got that feeling in Brazil. While in these countries, Mike made a lasting impression on many people he came in contact with. Many people from around the world, when hearing about Mike's passing, have sent messages by Facebook relating the profound effect Mike had on their lives. It reminded me of the saying, "We meet people for a reason. They're either here for a blessing or a lesson." Mike was both for so many. When others might have questioned Mike's lifestyle of work hard, play harder, I think many people, including myself, wish at times they could turn the clock back and do some of the things that Mike accomplished in his 32 years. Mike was the epitome of the phrase, "It feels good to be lost in the right direction." Mike reminds me, off the subject here a little bit, if you've ever seen the movie The Way with Martin Sheen in it, Mike reminded me so much of the son in there. If you haven't seen the movie, watch it sometime. He reminded me of the son in there called Daniel. Daniel was a carefree spirit like Mike Kelly. Daniel's father, Martin Sheen, was hard driver, ophthalmologist, work your way through life, that's it. Well, Daniel, who was working on his doctorate, said, I've had that. I don't want to do that anymore. I want to go visit. I want to go see places. I want to see new people, have new experiences. And his dad said, well, my life might not be flashy, but it's the life I've chosen. And he looked at Martin Sheen's son, Emilio Estevez, looked at him and said, Dad, you don't choose a life, you live a life. And I think that's what Mike's done. He lived a life, more so than many people ever experience. To Mike and Debbie, I think part of the reason I think I got out of coaching the first kid I ever had to bury. April 11th, 1989. Was a kid named Steve Owens, and first kid ever who wrestled for me. To lose a child is the worst thing. Nothing can replace the emptiness in your life. Death changes everything. Time changes nothing. I still miss the sound of your voice, the wisdom in your advice, the stories of your life. Just being in your presence. So no, time doesn't change anything. I miss you just as much today as the day you passed. I just miss you. I'll miss Mike forever. And no, I haven't lost a child, but every day I see my kids, I just know this could be the last time. And it kills me. Mark Twain wrote, the two most important days of your life are the day you were born and the day you find out why. Mike Kelly figured out long before all of us. In closing, I want to say this. My daughter Alex last week was posting on Facebook. She said how she was so sad because of her big brother figure, Mike, and how important he was to her. And plus she lost her Uncle Johnny, who passed away last week also. And while I was reading this, I was thinking of the quote I've read one time. It says, don't cry because it's over. Smile because it ever happened. I replied back to her that the real tragedy in life would have been that you never would have experienced either one of these individuals. She had the gift that both of these good men came into her life and made her a better person. And so my closing gift to Mike Patrick Kelly is this quote from Mark Twain. Life is short. Break the rules. Forgive quickly. Kiss slowly. Live truly. Laugh uncontrollably. And never regret anything that makes you smile. Goodbye, Mike Kelly. Thank you.
Kevin. Eric Rice, Mike Kelly's foreman and his superintendent.
Hello, everybody. My name is Eric Rice, and I had the great honor of working with and supervising Mike Kelly on the Tahoe Hotshots. Mike had a proud and diverse career as a fireman. He started his career in California on the Inyo National Forest in 2002, and it's nice to see you guys made it out. A good gathering from the Inyo today. There he worked on the wildfire use crew, an engine, and a helicopter. In 2007, Mike worked for the Redding Hotshots, which is a training crew out in California, and he was able to get a lot out of that crew. But in 2008, he came to work for us. He's been permanently attached to us ever since, professionally, as a friend and a family member. In 2011, Mike accepted a rookie smoke jumper position in McCall. For those that don't know, rookie smoke jumping is a challenging endeavor that Mike trained really hard for. He put his heart and soul into training for that program. Towards the end, Mike sustained a neck injury that ended the fire season and a chance to be a smoke jumper that year. But as expected, Mike called me on the phone soon after he figured out what was wrong with his neck. And he says, "Hey, Rat, I need you to start working on another detail for me to go back to McCall next year." And so I did. And he got to go back. And a second attempt, rookieing at McCall, of course, he was successful. And in 2012, he jumped out of McCall. And in 2013, out of West Yellowstone. Mike loved being a smoke jumper. He loved it. It fit his personality, the independence, the creativity. He just couldn't get enough. He was one of the most well-rounded firefighters that I've known. When Mike came to the Hotshots in 2008, his impact on the crew was instant. He came in hot, as we say. He quickly rose to the top of the pecking order. Mike was totally overqualified for how we used him. He came to us with a strong list of fire line qualifications, including crew boss. And what that means is Mike could really go take out his own crew. And so what did the Tahoe Hotshots do with him? We handed him a hand tool that looked just like that one over there. And we told him, start swinging. And he did, hard. Mike could swing that tool, boy. You know, Mike wouldn't have wanted it any other way. He was determined to earn his respect through the ranks of the crew. The problem was we couldn't justify it, no matter how hard Mike fought against us to stay on a chainsaw. It was clear Mike was ready and able to be a leader on the crew. He had the ear of his overhead by the middle of his first year, which was my year. He was in it often about what he thought, with fantastic ideas, creative ideas. And, you know, he was a new guy, but he was a smart new guy, and I couldn't ignore it. He made me look good. By his second year, he was the new guy, or he was the guy new crewmen tried to emulate. You know, Mike didn't wear a shirt very much, especially after he got that Falcon tattoo. It's no secret, though, Mike was a stud. The thing is, Mike was more than just an animal in the PT circle, in the project units, and on the fire line. Being on the crew for as long as I have, I've worked with plenty of beasts over the years. But what immediately separated Mike was his mind. He was sharp, he was creative, and he was analytical. The wheels were always turning in his head. He shined in stressful situations. Mike was the rare combination of physical prowess and mental acuity. That's why he always rose to the top every place he worked. Personally and professionally, I didn't always get it right with Mike. We didn't always see eye to eye. But the truth is, I loved Mike. I favored Mike. I respected Mike. And I cared about what he thought of me. I admired the way he lived his life and the way he carried himself through it. I admired his sense of right and wrong. My wife and I spoke of Mike often. She appreciated him going out of his way to talk to her at crew functions. And she thought Mike was really good looking. I said, come on, baby. Give me a break. Pretty funny. I have a picture of Mike holding my oldest son at a softball game while I'm up to bat. I've spent a lot of time looking at that picture lately. Mike was drawn to my sons. He interacted with them, and he complimented my wife and me on our boys frequently. Thank you, Mike. To Mike and Debbie, I've already said it, but it bears repeating. I think you've helped us more than we've helped you. You've taught me about the power of forgiveness, humanity, and understanding. And I hope to come out on the other side of this with you. Thank you for Mike.
Introduce you to Matt Kozier, a longtime good bro of Mike's.
Hello. My name is Matthew Kozier, as Todd said, and Mike and I are best friends. I wrote this little story down of what I was thinking when thinking of something to say. So I remember the time in my life when I first met Mike. I was down and out, and I spent the last few dollars on a bus ticket from Colorado, headed west to Mammoth Lakes, California. I was 20 years old, and I was reporting for my first year with the U.S. Forest Service. New places and new faces. And one of those faces wore a timeless smile on a tiny head, topped with an overgrown, shaggy bowl cut. And carrying this tiny head was a tall and gangly body, swaggering over to me. "What's up, dude? What's up?" We shook hands. And how was I to know then, that the 12 years since that handshake, what kind of friendship was going to form? How we were going to influence each other's lives, what we were going to teach and learn from each other, what kind of mistakes and stupid situations we were going to follow each other into, and what an immensely big and beautiful world we would go and explore together. I say I remember the time Mike and I first met because looking back on it now when I was writing this, I realized we had a lot in common before we ever really knew each other. You know, we were both in our early 20s, you know, both just within the last couple years we had moved away from home, both having just recently hit rock bottom financially. And we were both working on a fire crew with some of the most influential and the coolest guys you'll ever meet. But most importantly, to quote all those before me, we were living the dream. Let me tell you a little something about living the dream now. First and foremost, it involves working hard because ultimately that's what you signed up to do. Now fires, and they happen all summer long. You know, the government essentially decides where you're going to go to work, what fresh new place you're going to visit, work, and camp in with your best friends. I know, if that wasn't enough, all that and money too. So that happens more or less for 6 months of the year, and then the rest of the time you have to do with it as you please. Mike loved this lifestyle. He lived for it, and he epitomized it, as some people have touched on already. So going back to, you know, living in Mammoth those next couple years, there was no shortage of good people and good times. Actually, great people and great times. Sometimes I wondered if it was possible to have too much fun, but I know Mike didn't think so. If you were hanging out with Mike, you were having a real good time, every time. Time was divided between snowboarding, bars, nightclubs, friends, and girls. And as you can imagine, life was not difficult, and we all had the world by the horns. Anyway, it was amidst this time in our condo that Chris Loomis had just returned from a Brazil trip, and he was telling us of his adventures there. A land of warm tropical beaches and unsurfed waves, a warm and friendly culture where beautiful women outnumbered you 10 to 1. And I could see it then in Mike's eyes as he stared off. He was already there. Now, Mike, having just got back from a short trip to Australia and Europe, and hearing this story, his feet started to get itchy again. He turned to me and he said, "Let's do it, let's go." So needless to say, I was all in. So we saved our money that next summer, and at the end of it, I gave Mike a couple $1,000s. He gave me an itinerary. Costa Rica, Peru, Chile, Argentina, Brazil, 6 months. Epic. Now, Mike assured me not to worry, that he knew enough Spanish to get by. Well, getting by to Mike must have meant, "One more beer, please. Where is the bathroom? And thank you." So with Mike's expert grammatical knowledge of the Spanish language, this tall Polish Russian white boy with a big head and that tall white Irish boy with a tiny head found themselves immersed in a world much richer and grander than either of them could have imagined. I don't know, I was trying to describe it, it just stuck out pretty bad. And most people, when you head south to the Mexican border, the average person probably comes up to about here on us, and they all have black hair and brown skin. So they saw us coming. And I don't know if you caught it, but I was being sarcastic about Mike's language skills. But what he lacked linguistically, he more than made up for socially. Mike had a warm, friendly demeanor and a really charming personality. Language and cultural differences held no barrier to Mike. People loved Mike, plain and simple, no matter where they were from. And Mike did his research before we left. In that era of before mainstream social media, Mike knew the right places to go and the right people to meet. He had arranged to meet a few people in each country we visited to show us around, to really get to know the local way of life. Well, as fate, destiny, or whatever you call it would be, one of those people Mike had arranged to meet us would be my future wife. So this was the nature of Mike, or the magic of Mike. He changed people's lives. If Mike was part of your life, you knew it. He left his mark wherever he went. So it continued over the years. We would work together, travel our separate ways, meet up somewhere in Brazil or on a fire somewhere. But he continued his traveling, bringing his new friends and all the new people he'd meet overseas with him, showing them this great wide world, taking them on epic adventures, sailing through the Caribbean or floating down the Amazon River. And he'd bring people back too, introduce them to fire, bring people back to the crew that he'd met down there in some foreign country somewhere. And that was his way. He really had a way of influencing and changing people's lives from the time he entered this world to the time he left. But that's not entirely true, because he continues to this day, and I believe his influence will truly be everlasting. He really knew how to live. In his almost 33 years, he's lived the lives of 1,000 men. We all know Mike loved to travel. He was always leaving on some exotic trip. Now he's on one of the greatest journeys in this life. One journey all of us one day will take. But I look forward to that day we meet again. And like always, he will know all the right places to see and all the right people to meet. I look forward to seeing him again so he can enrich my next life as he has enriched this one for me.
Mr. Kelly, your turn. Mike Kelly, Sr., Mike Kelly's dad.
Todd, you're a beast. I had to say it. I'm going to try and get through this. First of all, I want to thank all of you for coming, your support for Debbie and I. Todd took care of a couple thank yous for me, but the Tahoe Hotshots, Eric and Matt, you guys, when Debbie and I went to California, after I flew back from Afghanistan and left the next day, these guys had a hotel room for us, a rental car, which we didn't need because they chauffeured us around to every place we had to go. I've been a proud union member for over 33 years. And I really thought I knew what brotherhood and sisterhood was. You firefighters got it all over everybody. God bless all of you. I love every one of you. Excuse me. Debbie gives me a whole package of Kleenex and I leave it in my jacket over there. I got a shirt sleeve. I'm good. It is sad to have something like this happen, to see old friends again. And I've seen some that I haven't seen for so long. The old Idaho Express days were some of the best of my life and Debbie's lives. It's so great to see some of you and know that our kids grew up in such an environment that we were there in just one big happy family and all enjoyed a common interest, and that was wrestling. And I couldn't think of a better environment for all of our kids to have grown up and be exposed to. And I love all of you too. Howard Brown, you saved us many times during this with your slideshow, putting together the program for us when we were stressing out so bad. Thank you seems so cheap right now. But you saved us, Penny. Thank you. My wife, Debbie. Just when I think I can't love you anymore, I do. Thank you for a beautiful son. Lastly, I want to thank God for a son like Mike. Mostly for helping me find the strength to find forgiveness in my heart, so there weren't multiple victims of this tragedy. It's been said and said, my son had a zest for life. That's an understatement. That's what makes this tragedy so hard to accept. And I won't accept it. There's just too many questions and not enough answers. And I know it's the bitterness in me and the anger in me speaking, but it's how I feel right now. Until I get some answers and where I can get closure for myself, it'll be a long road. Some of you may have kept up on Facebook that I came home on emergency leave when I found out the news about Mike Jr. And I was so lucky to be the only one in the phone tent at Kabul because there was a lot of chairs thrown after I hung up. So I came back. We went to California, like I said, Eric and Matt. We had meetings with sheriffs, California Highway Patrol, mortuary, everything to take care of the necessary business. And I called the government to say, hey, I need some more time. This investigation's going on a little bit longer. So being the government and their infinite wisdom, I had to go all the way back to Afghanistan, turn around and fly back. Leave my wife here for Mike's 33rd birthday by herself. So I get to Dubai. We have an ingoing and an outgoing hotel that the company supplies, and they're nice hotels. And I got into the hotel, and the bellboy, a Filipino young man, was asking me, how was your R&R, Sturgis? All smiles and everything. And some of you know me, I was mad at the world. I have the Irish temper. And it wasn't fair to him. I snapped, I lost my son. So I didn't have a damn vacation. So he helped me in my room, hook up the computer, and there was the picture of Mike running that's on the programs, because Debbie and I, we agree, it's Mike. And he asked me if that was my son. And I said yes. And I turn around and he's crying. And then he told me he'd lost 5 family members in the storm in the Philippines. So here I am, 10,000 miles away from home, crying with a stranger who then informs me we must be strong for the living. And I know it was Mike saying, see, Dad, it's not that bad. It could be worse. My R&R's home from Afghanistan's every 6 months. So I would do them in May and November. November was a good time because I have younger guys on the crew back in Afghanistan that have young children. And I say, go home for Christmas with your children. If I went home at Christmas, I would be bankrupt due to my granddaughter. So it was better that they go home for Christmas. And Thanksgiving was good because everyone came to our house to enjoy Debbie's cooking, and I could see everyone. So Mike and I in May, we would discuss, he would be getting ready for his season, and we'd discuss what was going on in Afghanistan, what he was going to do, his new challenges in his firefighting career, and what was going on. And of course, travel. This last May, he came. We were driving around. I think we were making a seaweed run in my truck. And Mike was, he thinks he can fool people, but you can't fool a father. I mean, you know, mothers have the instinct, fathers have the instinct too. So I asked him, what's up? He goes, what would be the chances of me taking your truck to West Yellowstone this season? Now, if some of you don't know the history of the blue truck, that truck is my baby. I've had it for 15 years, and it's been my baby. I said, well, I don't know. I'll have to think about it. We got home. I got in the Blazer, turned the key once, got out of the Blazer, told him, take the truck. I don't know how that young man ever made it from California to Idaho in that Blazer. I said, what we'll do is we'll take the tires off because he just bought new tires. I said, we'll call Pacific Recycling, see what we can get for the pound. So he took my truck, and then I saw some posts on Facebook, one with it loaded with surfboards. So I put a comment in there, great looking truck, where's my top cover? I got a reply back, Dad, it just doesn't fit my lifestyle. So Debbie and I talked on Facebook, and I said, hey, let's just give him the truck. So we talked about it and said, well, we should have something for it. I said, okay. So I gave Mike a price. And to his credit, he came back and says, "Are you sure about that price? Because that's more than fair to me." And I said that was a special Mike Kelly Jr. price, that it would be a lot more expensive for others. I said, heck, it's got a $1,000 stereo system in it anyway, but I guess Mike didn't think so because his mom informed me that he went down and spent another $1,500 on an upgrade stereo system in it. And he'd spent most of the time waxing the truck in the driveway of our house. So it warmed my heart to know that I could help him out in that respect. He hit me up here a while back. Brazil was his love. He loved Brazil. And he hit me on Facebook. He said, "Hey, I'm looking at a house in Brazil. How about floating me $30,000? I politely replied, "How about no?" He replied back, "Okay. How about a real estate investment of $30,000? And I said, "Excuse me, hell no." To which he replied, "It was worth a shot." That's why Debbie and I have decided that his ashes some will go to the Tahoe Hot Shots to be spread around his favorite areas where he liked to run, work out. McCall Smoke Jumpers. And Debbie and I will make a trip to Brazil to Estella, who I've talked to quite a bit on Facebook, who was like a mother to Mike down there, and make sure he gets to his beloved Brazil. The rest will stay with his mother until I return home from Afghanistan with the instructions, and we have a room full of people, Debbie, that if anything happens to us, Mike will be with us once again. I was blessed to have coached Mike in many sports growing up. A lot of fond memories of, "Jeff Tuttle, where are you? I love you." Meridian Gold, undefeated, midget season. Mike was the quarterback. Jeff Tuttle was our running back. Kelly to Tuttle. Quite the combination. That year we went undefeated midget. Jeremy, my youngest son, nobody would take the helm of coaching his flag football team. So being the sadomasochist that I am, I went ahead and took the flag football team on top of the tackle team. We won one game on the flag team, and that was because the kid on the other team ran the wrong way. So I had quite the different experiences during that year with Mike and his younger brother in regards to football. But my family's true love is and always will be wrestling. And Kevin hit it on the head. Wrestling is a teacher of life. I've just seen it too many times. And it helped shape Mike into the man that he was. Never say die. Never give up. And always persevere. The best thing I ever did was when Mike was a freshman in high school, is I give Kevin Wood a call. I said, "He's yours now, Kevin. I've coached him all I can." Kevin give me a couple calls, say, "Hey, I'm trying to get," I said, "Kevin, then he's yours. I'm done." Best thing I ever did with both my sons. The question always arose whenever we were together, where did he get his height? Debbie hates this, but I finally come up with, the night of conception, the stars were lined, the moon was full, everything was right on. That's how it happened. Then Debbie chiped in, "My brothers are tall." And I remember getting pictures taken, and I'd always say, "Oh, hell no, I need a chair." So I'd stand back there I always got tired of his armpit hugs. His mother, being the protection or territorial person she is of her kitchen, would never allow too many people in her kitchen while she was in there cooking, except her oldest son. And it was, I wish I would have videotaped it because it was so funny. She'd be going back and forth and just under his arm, and he's reaching in with those long arms into the refrigerator, pulling stuff out. She's cooking over here, he's doing this. It was quite the tandem team, to be quite honest with you. In closing, I love you, son. I'm going to miss you. And I'd give anything for one of those armpit hugs right now.
So we got a chance. We got a chance now to share some stories about Mike, and I'll accept volunteers. And if I don't get any volunteers, I'm gonna choose faces. Nice job. Come on up.
My name's Jeff Tuttle. I probably should have thought about whether or not I could compose myself for this before I volunteered, but Mike and I were, when I moved up from Utah in second grade, Mike and I met and instantly hit it off. I think a lot of people that have spoken here tonight and given tremendous words have said that that smile and Mike's personality made you feel like you had a friend or a kindred spirit pretty quickly off. And Mike and I had a lot in common. We were both really big into sports and girls, even in the second grade. And one thing that bound us that early in life was that we didn't like the normal pop garbage on the radio or the songs that we'd learned in Sunday school. No offense, I know we're in a church, but we were really big into Bon Jovi. Second grade, Slippery When Wet, then the New Jersey album, and we were just, we loved this band, and we thought we were so cool. And we were a little young to grow the hair out, but there aren't many, 8-year-olds that really have a favorite band that their parents probably don't like or don't listen to. And when we were in the third grade, I remember Miss Gregg and Miss Zerno's class, we had a talent show. And Mike's like, we're doing it. I mean, this is our chance. And so we got up there. We got 2 other suckers that didn't even like the band, as I recall, to go up there. And we did a lip-sync talent show to Lay Your Hands on Me. And after the first song, Mike was furious, and I don't recall, forgive me, if he called a timeout, but he came over to me and was like, you're just walking through this. He's like, I need the energy. Lay your hands on me. Like, it was kind of like the cowbell scene, if any of you are familiar with the Christopher Walken Saturday Night Live skit. Just like Bon Jovi and Richie Sambora had their beef, Mike had apparently taken that to heart, and he was chewing me out in front of my third grade class for not having the energy. And luckily for me, we had one more song left, and that was Born to Be My Baby, which was my favorite song. Lay Your Hands on Me was his favorite song. Born to Be My Baby was mine. And so I was Pete Townsend windmilling, and I was jumping off chairs and everything like that. And I think we got a good grade for our performance. Another story I'll share real quickly is that back in those days, it seemed like Mike was spending the night at my house, or I was spending the night over at Mike and Debbie's. And that's where I got introduced to Mountain Dew as an 8-year-old. And we'd stay up really late playing Contra and drinking Mountain Dew and watching Top Gun and talking about girls. And Mike said he loved me, and I think that he might not remember this story very well, but here's what happened. So one night I was sleeping over at the Kelly's house, and I was 8 or 9, and I hadn't spent too much time out of my own home. You know, it's still early in a young man's life to be crashing over his buddy's house, but for some reason, we were really hopped up on Mountain Dew, and we finally got to sleep. It was really, really late, and we were sleeping out on his couches in his family room. And the next thing I know, Mike Sr. barges in the door and says, "Get the hell out of here." And I looked up. It was like, first of all, I should clarify that Mike Sr. is probably the only person that I've ever felt comfortable talking to me like that, other than my own father. He coached me for so many years, and I screwed up so many times. And being of Irish heritage as well, that was a unifying thing between us, is that my dad's got a temper. Coach Mike's got a temper. I can live with this. But Mike came in the door and started yelling at me, and I looked up and then looked to the left to realize that somehow, and I blame the Mountain Dew, I had sleepwalked into his bedroom while he was gone at a gas station getting something, and I was laying at the foot of his bed on top of Debbie's legs as a 9-year-old, and I looked up and found out where I was, ran back to the family room, jumped in my sleeping bag, and Mike's like, "What's going on?" I was like, "Don't worry about it, man. Just forget it. Just forget it." That was a pretty scary moment in my life, but I've always cherished my relationship with Mike, and I certainly count him as one of the 2 or 3 most influential people in my life. When I reflect on the type of person I want to be, the type of person that I hopefully am, excuse me, those early formative years with Mike were so important to me. I know that those early years we were so close. We actually, he's the only one I've ever been dumb enough to do this with, but one day we decided, since we couldn't be brothers in real life, we were going to be blood brothers, and I said, sounds like a kind of a dumb idea. First of all, the pain, and second of all, the blood. But again, I think he said something like, "Well, we're both Irish, so I think that the mix will be fine." And so we did it, and in his bedroom. It's a really dumb idea, looking back at it. But a tender story, just in closing, and I don't want to take too much more time. The Saturday, a couple of weeks ago, my father's, one of his best friends from childhood passed away. And my family was shocked and heartbroken. And the thought came to me to call my friends, my best friends that had been there for me through my life, and the ones that meant the most to me, and to tell them how much I loved them. And Mike was on that list. And things got busy, and my wife and I needed to run to a prior engagement. And then I never made those phone calls. And the next morning I found out that Mike had passed away. And it was an empty feeling beyond any description. But I know that he's here now. And just like the rest of you have said that have brought this tender spirit into this room, I know that he's here now, and I want to tell him how much I love him. And thanks for always sticking by me and being such a good friend and a good person and a good man. I love you, Mike.
Good afternoon. My name's Chris Boyer. I met Mike in 2008, and the last 3 years, he was definitely one of my closest friends. One of those reasons is because Mike loved to work out nearly as much as I did. Nobody else wanted to work out. I could usually count on Mike. One day last winter, we were working out together, and I was done, about ready to change, and I walked past our weight room area at the station there, and I see Mike with his shirt off. It's a dead of winter, and he's got a dumbbell in one hand, and he's doing something I've never seen before. He's got it, holding it like this, and he's doing this. And I look at him, like, Mike, what are you working on there? What is that? And he goes, I'm working on my sex lines. And I go, sex lines? And I'm thinking back, I was a kinesiology major in college, and I don't remember a muscle group called sex lines. And so I asked Mike, I was like, can you show me where those are? And Mike was leaving for Brazil in about a week, and he kind of shows me it's this lower abdomen muscle right here that when you're wearing a Brazilian sunga, it accentuates that area. And so I thought whatever, and watched him that whole next week just working on his sex lines. So Mike jumped in West Yellowstone. So back to the story. Mike jumped in West Yellowstone this summer. He came back in October, and we were PTing in the morning, and again I'm walking back to the locker room, done changing, and I walk past the weight room area, and there are 3 new guy hotshots there with a dumbbell in one hand, doing that. And so that just kind of breaks it down to you, the influence that Mike had on people he traveled with, his friends, family members, new guys. It just never stopped. His influence has spread of good things. So I just know that Mike's not here anymore, but I'm pretty darn sure he's somewhere on a beach, and I'm sure his sex lines are looking good.
I'm Ryan Brown. My name's Ryan Greenwald now. I changed my last name, but just so you know who I am. But I grew up with Mike. We lived in the same neighborhood together, and we played football together. We wrestled together. We went to wrestling tournaments together. We stayed a lot of nights over at Mike and Debbie's house, and Mike is the reason why I still love the Washington Redskins. I look at the helmet. I hate them for it because the Washington Redskins are horrible, because they are absolutely horrible. But Mike brought a lot of things to my life. And I remember when I had to move out of the neighborhood, it was one of the worst things ever, because I was going to lose my best friend. So we lived across town, and I remember we would get on the phone together and we'd play Monopoly over the phone. I don't know if one person was cheating or not, but we had so many damn good stories. I'll tell you one of my favorite stories is we were always really mischievous and stuff, and we decided to light tomato worms on fires and throw them at cars. And Mike found out about it. And I remember him getting so pissed at us. And I was just glad that I wasn't going to get it. I think he was about ready to spank me, but he called my parents up first. I remember, but Mike got the belt, so I felt pretty bad for him. But I got it when I got home. So anyways, we had awesome times. We'd stay up late at night, try to watch scary movies, or, try to scare each other, or talk about girls. We made up fake girlfriends. I remember mine was Blondie Boobs, and I forget what his was, but we just had such a fun time as kids, And I think that's what it's all about. And when you hear about things like this, it doesn't matter the amount of time that goes by. Those people hold a special place in your heart. It's not what they say, it's how they made you feel. The last time I saw Mike, I was in a mosh pit at a Weezer concert. He had long hair. I didn't recognize him. But as soon as our faces met, he said, Ryan. I said, hey, Mike. It felt like old times. And I just want to tell you, Mike and Debbie, you guys are awesome. I love you guys.
Hi everyone, my name's Cody Duska. Joe and I went to high school with Mike. Spent quite a bit of time together. I thought I'd just kind of piece together how Mike actually got to California. Some of us are probably responsible for that. We went to high school together. After we graduated, I kind of bummed around for a year. Mike was doing some jobs as well. And one of our good friends in high school, Nick Ferranato, was moving to Mammoth. Nick's dad's here today. Nick can't be here. But Mike and I basically just kind of followed Nick to California. Nick was from California, and I think Mike and I guess maybe just want to see a little bit more of the world, more of Idaho. So we moved to Mammoth in 2000, I think it was, and worked at the ski resort. Nick worked there as well, and we're just basic ski bums. Met a lot of cool people, a lot of people from around the world. I skipped a year, went back a second season, and lived with Drew and Christina. Same thing, just lived it up again. Mike was in fire by then, I think. And I think I was this close to joining you guys. I had my fire paper signed. Matt, you might remember. And I met a girl. It was downhill from there. So, yeah, we went back to Australia, did a bit of visiting. Mike went to Australia while I wasn't there. And my future wife and I, we came back and did another season in Mammoth, and lived with Mike again. And I think that winter he took off for Brazil. Might have been his first trip. But I think, I know there's people in this room think things happen for a reason. I definitely do. I think for whatever reason we went to Mammoth and met some cool people, and it's changed my life. I've got my wife back in Australia. She knew Mike really well as well, and we've got two boys as well. So I don't know what it'd be like to lose him, but Mike was a huge influence on me. Nice guy, just happy. As you guys see, I put some pictures up a while ago, and every single picture he's just happy and grinning and silly, crazy Kelly. I think Mammoth, in a number of ways, just we went from boys to men there. We kind of lived in places together, but that was where we really took on responsibilities. We had our bills, we had our rent, we had everything, and we grew up a lot there. And I think that really opened our mind up to to traveling and sports and just all the things we had in common. Just like Jeff was saying. We went to dozens and dozens of concerts together, and it's just it's a big impact. And I kept in touch with him over the years. After moving to Australia in 2005, and it was just like we're all friends. It was always love you, man, love you, Mike, love you, Cody. When we signed off, and it's I guess I don't have too much more to say than that. It'd be a huge loss, and I love you, Mike. That's it.
So my friend Cody over here, I've known him since I was 5 years old, and he's been living in Australia probably the past 9 years, and he comes back with an accent. Like, just blows my mind.
I don't hear it.
I don't know if the rest of you can hear it. It just blows my mind. So I've known Mike Kelly since the 6th grade. I don't think we were friends in the 6th grade because I think we had different friends, or he had friends and I had my brother. I wasn't very social back then, but I asked him, and this is in our adult life, so I got to know him mainly through Cody and recognized that he was a really cool guy. And I asked him, why do you think we weren't friends when we were kids? I mean, I was really quiet, and he's like, well, honestly, Jeff Tuttle said you weren't cool. And so it's funny that he's here right now. So as this, as the story goes, Jeff Tuttle was my locker buddy. So they grouped two of you up, and then you guys are locker buddies. And so I remember I needed to do my math. And so I would take my homework home each day and do my math. And on this particular day, I couldn't find my math book. And so a couple days later, it turns up, and I'm like, hey, Jeff, have you seen my math book? He's like, yeah, I borrowed it. I needed to do my homework. I'm like, okay, well, you got your own math book. He's like, yeah, I think it's at home or something. And I'm like, well, you can have your own math book. Anyway, so this continued to happen for a period of time, and that's why I wasn't cool, because Jeff Tuttle told Mike Kelly that I wasn't cool. Anyways, but as we got older, he turned out to be just a really cool guy. He started doing his firefighting, and he'd come down and we'd hang out and we'd go out. And if anyone knows me, they know that I love to dance. And Mike Kelly was also quite the dancer. I don't think anyone's brought that up yet. Probably one of the funnest guys to go dancing, and he stands out, so you'll never lose him. You just look above everybody's heads, and there he is. The cool thing with him is when we were dancing, he'd always point to you, give you shout-outs from across the room. So he'd be working someone over there, I'd be working someone over here, and I'm like, where's Mike? I look over, shout-outs every single time. So just a nice guy to go dancing with. But he came down in September, and I think it was mentioned before that he never told you in advance when he was coming. He would just kind of show up on your doorstep and expect you to go out. Whether or not you needed to go to work tomorrow in the morning, it didn't really matter. You were going out that night, and we were going to have a good time. We would go meet and mingle with people. So he came down in September, and we had a good talk because earlier in the year there was all those firefighters. There's 19 firefighters that lost their lives out in Arizona, and honestly, I didn't know exactly where he was stationed or where he was at, and I actually thought he was part of that. So we talked a lot about death and dying, and I told him that you needed to be careful out there, and honestly, I don't think that he was really afraid of any of that stuff, and not the way that I'm afraid of that stuff. He said, you gotta live life to the fullest, and you can't go around thinking something bad's gonna happen. And for myself, who's always been here in town, and I never get out, he's right. I mean, you got to live life to the fullest and meet people and so forth. And we were talking about getting older and how my hair's starting to turn a little bit gray, and he's like, yeah, my hair's falling out too. It sucks, but who cares? He said, you just shave it off. It doesn't mean you can't talk to women and stuff like that. So just have a good time as long as you got good, sharp features. If your face looks good, don't worry about your hair. So I was thankful that he was able to tell me that. I really enjoyed the time that I spent with him. He taught me a lot about what it's about to live life to the fullest and not always be afraid and stuff like that. And and I see him just standing in my kitchen. If he were here, because like me, I'm a hothead, and a few times when we'd go out, I mean, there's one thing I hate is douchebags. I like going out, having a good time, mingling. I hate douchebags that come up. Mike Kelly, he diffuses the situation. He's just like, let it go. Don't worry about it. Let's have a good time. This is about us. You don't got to worry about other people coming up to us and ruining things, and that's the type of mentality that he had, and I think that's how what he would say to me right now is, don't be mad. I'm very angry and I'm super frustrated. but he wouldn't want me to be mad, and he wouldn't want anybody here to be mad either. And things happen sometimes. And he would want everybody to live life to the fullest, and he'd be so happy to see all your faces here celebrating his life. And I enjoyed the time that I spent with him, and I'll miss him a lot, and I'll think about him. Thank you.
I want to share a bit of a funny story I forgot to mention before. No. It doesn't involve you, man. That's all right. We've got plenty of those, but that's all right. I know everybody's got a million stories about Mike, and not all of them are PG, but this one's PG. I put some pictures up a while ago of us going to Disneyland. Would have been, 2003 or 4 or something. And I don't know if Mike had been there. I don't think he had, because we hadn't been there, and we kind of did everything together. But we went to Disneyland, and he was just like a kid in a candy store. If you saw those pictures, if anybody's on Facebook, he just had the biggest smile on his face. Skipping all the way to Disneyland on the street and fell down, and it was just hilarious. But yeah, anyway, we were kind of just roaming around and seeing things, and we saw this kind of crowd forming. And it wasn't Mike. Don't worry about that. He was with us. But it was like a flash mob before there was flash mobs. It was just some stupid Disney performers. There was 4 or 5 of them. And if you see the picture online, you'll know the one I'm talking about. But yeah, they were doing some song and dance or something, and Mike there was probably a few hundred people just standing around, and he just went up there and just started dancing in front of them. I think the worm came out at one point, if anybody's seen Mike's worm. And just, yeah, like, I think he was down on one knee, the picture I had, he was proposing to one of the girls, and at the end he did like I don't know what you call it, but the crab walk, you know, you put his legs between his legs and just walking around and just completely humiliated them. That wasn't his intention, though. It was just funny, you know. It was someone, you know, they were supposed to be entertaining people, and he was entertaining the crowd more than they were. It was just, that's a pretty funny story that, yeah, I think about. So I'll end on that.
Good afternoon. My name is John Lovnia. I'm a rookie bro with Mike Kelly, or Ned Bro more affectionately, and also one of the few Redskins fans on the face of the earth. So once you meet a man like that, you know he has a high tolerance for pain and suffering, and automatically gets your good graces. It's an honor to be here today. I'm as much honored to be here to celebrate Mike's life as I am saddened to be here to mourn his loss. My very sincerest condolences go out to Mike and Debbie and the family and the friends, everyone here and everyone that couldn't be here. But as we all know, Mike, we know he would have wanted to put a smile on our faces. And as one of his bros, I'll be assisting him in an attempt to do that today. The memory we'd like to share with you is that of our first fire jump. It was a balmy morning in Ogden, Utah, which consists of about 96 degrees at 8 a.m. On the 4th of July, 2012. Mike and I and the rest of the Neds, as we're lovingly called, had just finished our morning news informing the rest of the bros of fire affairs, jumper status, and in fact that Britney Spears was still making music. As Mike and I were sitting there sorting cargo, he looked over at me with that half smile as he was eating some sort of pickled monstrosity, garlic, I'm assuming. He shook his head and said, "Hey, love to know it's the 4th today. You know what that means?" And I shook my head. He smiled and he says, "When we get our first jump today, it's going to be a freedom jump." Heck yeah, bro, America. So as we got the rustling, as we laughed and continued, word trickled down that there was a jump request. As it became official, Mike and I hurriedly dashed to get in our gear, only to hurriedly dash to the restroom to squeeze out that last little bit before what could be a very long plane ride. As we came back, it became obviously apparent that Mike had inherited the base squeak toy, which for a few of those of you guys are not aware is a squeaky toy that gets shoved someplace in your jumpsuit, usually in a place you can't reach. And as you reach down to adjust anything, a long squeal is out, and everyone knows that you're now in control of the squeaky toy. As everyone laughed and that telltale squeak sang out, Mike just laughed, gave a big grin, knowing that little minor details couldn't be worried about then. We had bigger aspirations to do. Today we were gonna get our fire jump, our first live one, something that we had all worked for, and for those of you that know Mike, he battled for. As the plane lifted into the scorching Utah sky that afternoon, spirits were high, smiles were wide, and the smell of garlic was thick in the plane. Upon reaching our fire, it was determined that the winds were too high and not in our favor, and that we were running low on fuel. So we were to land in Blanding, Utah, for fuel and to wait for the winds. Just a quick side note on Blanding. If it had a flavor, I would describe it as tap water. There is not a whole lot there, and Mike and I were kind of in sore spirits that that may be the spot of our final for the day. As we waited patiently on the steps, which is where this picture was taken, about a half hour before our first fire jump, Chris Nikolai, our spotter and official Ned herder, reminded us that as good Neds, we should be holding Windex in our leg pockets so that for just this occasion, we could be Windexing the plane's windshield instead of sitting on the steps. As we took off, the plane refueled, we took off, and word was the wind would die down, and we wanted to return to the air. With a mighty squeal and squeak from Mike's pants, we gathered ourselves up and returned into the plane and over the fire. This time we wouldn't be denied. As we set into orbit, I saw my rookie bro pull his leg straps tight and hook up. As it came to be his turn to get in the door, he yelled back at me with that very loud, clear voice that he had over the noise of the plane, and with a great big smile said, "See you on the ground, bro." And with that, he was out the door. And I feel like I might have even heard a faint America on the way out. As he leapt into the thin air, there was definitely America. As I hit the ground, I found my rookie bro, and we high-fived and congratulated one another. And then it was off to work in operations as usual. After all, there was a lot of important duties to do as rookie smoke jumpers, and we were the men to do it. So with that, that's the story of our first fire jump, and I'd like to tell you that it doesn't get any better than that, and that we didn't have anything that we could ever overcome that feeling. But Mike and I would be lying if I told you that, and being as we're in church, it may or may not be in poor taste to lie. So I am indeed entitled to tell you the second half of that story. So the story does in fact go on and get better. As we got ourselves into Blanding, Utah on our demo, we were informed that Blanding was a dry county, and therefore no appreciatory beers were to be had to celebrate our first jump. As true patriotic, red-blooded Americans that we were, Mike and I both concurred that this was unacceptable. And that it needed our attention forthright. After a little inquiry, we found that at the edge of the county line, there was a gas station about 4 miles away, and that they sold beer. The problem was that we didn't have any private vehicles to get there. Being government, you can't transport it, so we were kind of SOL. By the time we got to the motel and checked in, the time was ticking, and with some fast calculations, we figured the best way to get to the store was to ask the fine folks of Blanding, the conservative, religious, quiet, kind people for a ride. As I checked out the fireworks stand for the hopefuls, the man with the mullet in the Trans Am denied my request. Big old Mike decided the best spot would be right in front of the grocery store. As he's wide-eyed, bushy-haired, bushy-faced, loud, and arguably smelly, he approached people with an honest but probably somewhat overwhelming approach. With that burnt, stinky garlic smell. After a few no's, a couple bewildered looks, and probably a couple crying babies or two, we determined that our course of action was not working. So like any good firefighter, we pulled back and reassessed and considered our options. As fate would have it, two 10-year-old boys were riding their bicycles right down the street right towards us as we were sitting there discussing our close options. With a reassuring look to one another that we both knew in an instant, Mike approached the boys. I don't know if they froze in fright or just in pure bewilderment, but they stopped regardless. We offered them a very fair deal of $10 apiece to rent their bicycles to pedal down 4 miles out to the county line. And we'd give them half the money now, $5 apiece, and half the money when we came back. And to sweeten the deal, and it probably means more to the Hobart guys, but he had this crusty old Hobart hat that I don't think he would have given away if someone gave him $1 million, but he threw that into the kid to sweeten the deal and ensure that he'd be back. When the kid, I think, just felt that he was giving him a dead animal of some sort. Didn't quite sink in, but they accepted it, despite the sight and smell of it. Just as we acquired our new steeds, it became immediately present that we had definitely exceeded the age limit. As I was on my bright orange Huffy with my knees to my chest, I could only say that Mike was considerably much worse on his 10-year-old mountain bike with his knees to his ears. But at this time, we knew that we had a goal, and I don't know how fast we were riding, but whatever the point is, that time slows down. That's about where we were hitting. So light speed-ish, give or take. Anyways, just in time to get to the gas station and secure ourselves a couple of 18 packs of 3.2 Budweiser. As we fashioned ourselves some fantastic electrical tape back straps and proceeded to pedal our bikes back towards town, one of the kindly folks of Blanding in his white old Ford pickup truck pulled up to the side and asked if we would like a ride, specifically because the boys inside of his truck needed their bikes back. So after we hopped in the back of the truck there with the wind blowing in our hair and our spoils of war sitting next to us, they dropped us off at the hotel. Mike and I, being the men that we were, paid the boys their money. Mike threw an extra $5 because he broke some hand-carved pedals with his giant feet and weight on a 10-year-old bike. They kindly gave Mike back his diaper/hat that he put on his head. And as they drove off, we both shot each other a look knowing that we had just pulled off an exceedingly awesome first-time jump. Coincidentally with that, a 3-2 beer never tasted so good when you had to earn it. So that's the entire story of the first jump through the PG version and probably the version that may or may not be told. It's in my sincerest hope that we all get to recall our best times with Mike like this. He wouldn't want it any other way. So Mike, on behalf of your Ned Bros, as well as everyone in this room, the people that can and can't be there, those loved and touched by you both, you're in our thoughts, and you'll forever be in our hearts. God bless and thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Ty Murdoch. I know a lot of people have told stories, and I just had to tell this one before I got out of here. Growing up, the Kellys were like second family to me. They they took me on all sorts of wrestling adventures. Mike taught me how to wrestle, and Mike and Jeremy were like my two older brothers. And Mike was such a great older brother. He told me all about music. I remember I was 10 years old. He told me the ins and outs of Snoop Dogg and who Snoop Dogg was and how awesome he was and why I should listen to him. And everything Mike said to me, I believed him, and he was absolutely right. I still like Snoop Dogg to this day. He taught me a lot of things. He taught me about girls at such a young age, and I remember one trip we went to Fresno, California for a regional wrestling trip, and he told me about this girl named Jenny McCarthy, and how beautiful she was, and how she had recently posed for Playboy, and I think I was, I have to. So I think I was 10 or 11, and Mike's not much older than me, and we got this great idea on how to get a Playboy from Jenny McCarthy Playboy. So we went down to the local convenience store, and we found a can collector, or car pusher, homeless guy, some might call him, and we bribed this guy to buy us a Playboy, and it was pretty awesome. It was my first Playboy, and from there on out, Mike was always awesome. And just recently, like last winter, he hit me up on Facebook, and I don't check it enough. I wish I would have. And he said he saw my sister and I out eating at a restaurant in Boise, and he asked if it was me, and if he knew it was me, because I hadn't seen him in a long time, he would have come up to me and said hi. And I hit him back, and I was really looking forward to the next time he was in town. I was getting excited to see Mike again and catch up on all of his adventures. So, pretty sad about that, and I'm sorry for your loss, Mike, and Debbie, and Jeremy, and everybody, and love Mike, and thank you for hearing my story.
I'm Andrew Pattison. Going to try to keep this short. Mike was an awesome guy, and we were fast friends as soon as we met. I'm kind of, after Cody and Nick and Mike moved to Mammoth, actually my wife, who's here today too, she lived downstairs from these guys when they were in company housing at the mountain, at Mammoth Mountain, and so she's actually known Mike longer than I have. But in 2002, my wife and Mike and I all started fire together, and all lived in the barracks, and that was the first time I met Mike with his shaggy hair, and like I said, we were fast friends, and I was privileged to get to work with Mike, and we started our careers there on the Inyo, and I learned a lot from him. He definitely had an amazing work ethic. People have touched on that today. I think the wrestling, and I never was a wrestler, but I got a chance to wrestle Mike a few occasions, and I think I probably had about 50 pounds on him at that point, and he would always pin me. But so I got to work with Mike for a few years on the fuels crew that became the fire use module. He went away and did some rappelling on a helicopter, and work on a fire engine with my wife again, who was on the engine that year, and then went away to Tahoe, and I got to hear a ton of great stories. He had an amazing time working on the Hobart crew, and then he got to jump, and I was privileged to see him about 3 times, I think, this summer. Never got to jump with him, which I would have loved to do. Would have loved to have been his rookie bro. But he came through Missoula a couple times, which is where I jump out of now, and so I got to see him, go out to dinner with him a few times. He was helping us with our garden at home, and then one other time when I got to see him in Grangeville, Idaho this summer, and he was just such a good friend, and I know everybody that ever met him was really touched by him, his personality, and everything he had to offer the world. And he did live life to the fullest. And I think we all need to take his example and strive to do that. It was kind of funny hearing Jeff's story of the lip syncing in grade school, and I kind of have one memory that I'll always have of Mike. After we'd get back from roles on the fire use module, we'd come back and have worked a bunch of overtime and knew we had some money in the bank, and so we'd always go out to this sushi restaurant in Mammoth Lakes, and couldn't get out of there without spending less than $60 or something, and that was a lot of money for us firefighters then. And but one of the funnest things was they had karaoke there at the sushi place. And so one of my favorite memories of Mike will always be him belting out Bad Medicine and playing air guitar and sliding across the floor on his back. And but yeah, that's just the way that he was, always lived life to the fullest. And like Cody said, he's always entertaining everybody, and he was a great guy, and I will remember for the rest of my life Mike Kelly and the effect that he's had on me in my life. And yeah, that's it.
We appreciate hearing these stories, and appreciate the bravery to come up here and leave it on the ground, talking about your love for Mike. And I would hope that it doesn't stop. We get to go and enjoy the food the jumpers are preparing and the tri-tip that's sitting in his marinade, I think. I would encourage you all to keep bouncing these stories around. And, it could be a long night, but make sure you keep Mike and Deb close to that circle of stories so they get the benefit of them as well. I'd like to introduce Burke Minor. He's got some things that Mike Sr. would like him to share with you guys when he's done. We'll enjoy the video the boys worked so hard on, and we'll wrap it up.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Burke Minor. I'm the director of the Wildland Firefighter Foundation here in town. Mike and Debbie, we've really never spoken to service before, and we try to stay behind the scenes as much as we can. And I know you guys had requested today that we had some information here and some self-addressed envelopes and things like that, but honestly, that's not how we roll. But I want you to know how honored we are that you would think of us that way. I also want to tell you, we do fundraisers all the time wherever we're at. One of our big fundraisers is in McCall in the wintertime. It's during the black and blue game of the BSU hockey team here, and also up north in Moscow, their hockey team. And I too have a funny story of Mike. It was about 2 years ago. We went up there and did our first one, and we were in the middle of the hockey game, and we all of a sudden wanted to put together a boot drive. The problem is we didn't have any boots. And there was this one big old guy that took off his boots, man, and he was going to help us with this boot drive. And he handed his boots out to other people, and because the ice was cold and everything, and he wanted to stay there with his socks on by me. And so he stood there at our booth, and finally when he seen how much fun these firefighters were having out collecting money in the boots through the crowds, he grabbed one of my beanie caps off my table, and he took off out there, and he came back. Everybody brought their boots back. The halftime was over, whatever was going on, and it got to be kind of a funny thing that this guy didn't have his boots on while everybody was filling the boots, and he grabbed this beanie again, and he kept going around and around and around through the crowd through the whole rest of the game. And Mike and Debbie, got to tell you, that was your son. He packed that beanie so full of money for our foundation that I think the thing was stretched out, and he did that in his socks running around the ice arena up there. So Mike's already raised some money for this foundation, but you know, there's another nonprofit 501c3 involved today, and you're actually sitting in their building right now. So if any of you are felt to do so, maybe you'll drop some money here at the church. When I found out that I was going to be speaking up here today, I was laying in bed last night kind of wondering what I might talk about and share about, and nothing really ever came to me. And I got to work today, and there was an email that came into our info of our foundation. And it dawned on me that at that time that's what I would share about. And this email came in to us today, and it says, Dear Wildland Firefighter Foundation, I'm a USFS employee currently on a Fulbright fellowship for 3 months with an exchange with the University of Santa Catarina in Brazil. Apologize about I don't know these towns over there. It was a surprise to me when my next door neighbors, they had told me about Mike months ago, told me about their grief and loss of their friend. Apparently he had been coming to exactly this tiny village for 7 or 8 years now, Parinha in Barra da Lagoa, Florianópolis. I will be living here for another 2 months and speak Portuguese. Todd, I think I found you a new trainer there. If you can think of a way I can be of a help at this time to his family or friends, please do let me know. I am told this little beach was a very special place to him, and rightly so. He generally stayed in the house a few doors down from mine and was close to all in this little neighborhood on Parinha, a very special little beach. This community here is sharing the grief of his other friends and family, and I thought his family would be comforted to know how deeply he touched the lives of others here. There was some mention of his family visiting here. It is a complicated process to arrange visas, etc. Flights are costly, so perhaps that will be difficult. If I can assist with the communication, etc. between the communities suffering Mike's loss at this time, I'm happy to do so. Thank you for all you do. My condolences to all who will miss him. Trista Patterson, United States Forest Service, PNW Research Station, Sitka, Alaska. So I heard somebody say already today that you know, they were wondering if people across the world that Mike touched knew, and they do. We're getting emails about it, so I wanted to share that. I also woke up this morning and I watched another memorial service, and this memorial service was Nelson Mandela's. And I watched that memorial service, and you know, through a lot of different cultures and a lot of different tries in life, you know, they got that culture right over there. They celebrate. They don't grieve at all, and it's a continued celebration of life. And I've been in this business for over a decade now, and I've come to understand that, you know, no matter how we feel, every day, every hour, every night, it's our choice to feel that way. And you know, I didn't know Mike on a level that a lot of you did, but I knew who he was because I've been in fire for 25 years now, and I know how wildland firefighters are. And there's 3 words that describe them, and it's duty, respect, and integrity. And I would just urge all of you to, you know, really concentrate on how you choose to feel, because I know Mike would want you to feel happy and celebrate his life. And so to the Tahoe Hotshots in here and all the rest of the firefighters that have came, and I've seen you all through this season. We've lost 38 firefighters this year in the wildland community. It's been a very devastating year for the community, and there's a lot of broken hearts out there, including in here to you. But to the Tahoe Hotshots and Mike families from the Wildland Firefighter Foundation, from our heart to yours. I also want to offer up today at the Wildland Firefighter Foundation, because there's so many firefighters in town, we're going to open up the foundation, have an open house up there, and continue Mike's celebration in life the way we probably can't do in the church here. So I would invite all of you to come up to the Wildland Firefighter Foundation and join us up there whenever you can and however you can. So With that, I'm gonna give this back. I appreciate you letting us be a part of your lives, and we have a family day every year in May where we bring all the families of fallen firefighters together. I'm going to invite you to those family days we have, welcome you to our family of fallen wildland firefighters, and I want to let you know that as soon as you're ready, we'd like a picture of Mike to hang on our walls up there with the rest of our fallen firefighters. We'll be placing a marker inside of our monument up here inside the National Interagency Fire Center, so Mike can rest with the rest of the fallen firefighters. And thank you very much.